Hello and welcome to West Country Wanderings. Welcome to the story of a village. We're here in both Worcestershire and Gloucestershire today because this village lies in both counties. The village is called Corse, spelt C-O-R-S-E, and this part of the village is known as Corse Lawn. It has an unusual feature. We also have this wonderful milestone here. Upton 8 miles and Gloucester 8 miles. So Upton on 7, just in that direction, which we've covered, of course, on the 7 way before, and the city of Gloucester just a few miles down the road. So this part of it is Corse Lawn. It also lies in the parish of Eldersfield in Worcestershire. There is a church in Eldersfield, but strangely the school, which is in Corse Lawn, is called Eldersfield Primary School. And that lies right here. Excuse the traffic noise because we're next to the road here. What we're going to do is we'll go on to the common here because that has an interest in itself, and I'll tell you some more about this fascinating village. I'm currently standing on Corse Lawn itself, and it's an ancient common. This entire area used to be part of what was known Corse Forest, C-O-R-S Forest, which is in turn part of the Greater Malvern Chase. Only parts of that still remain. You've got places at Castle Morton, just on the lower slopes of the Malvern Hills here. And it was an ancient hunting ground for the king, and this was ceded to the local people here in this part of Worcestershire. But just down there is Corse itself, which is also linked to another village called Staunton, and that's just over the border back in Gloucestershire. I told you it was an unusual place, but the people that live in the village here at Corse Lawn have rights to enable them to graze their cattle and horses on it as well. Now, yet again, I'm struck by something here on West Country Wanderings, how some places are densely packed with people. You can't move for them. The city of Gloucester is just 8 miles to the south of me here, population 125,000 people, all crowded in that small area. City of Worcester, about 10 or 15 miles to the north of me, similar population. Again, all those people crowded in a small area. A couple of other towns, Tewkesbury and Upton around. But here, you have the entire place, this wonderful common here, which is free to use for the people of the village here at Corse. They can use it. Wonderful place. Got the hawthorn there and an impromptu village pond. I don't think that's supposed to be there. I think that's just there from the heavy rainfall we had. Just the other side of the hedgerow there is a moat, but unfortunately, because the ground is so soggy and boggy, I can't make any further ingress and progress to be able to show you that. I'm not sure if that moat is linked to Corse Court, which is further south of the centre of the village at Corse, which is going to be heading shortly, but it may well have some connection to that, but it's just marked as moat on the OS map. If I can find some more information when I do the edit, I'll drop it in the usual way below. I've just come round to the Corse Lawn Hotel, which apparently is one of the finest hotels in Worcestershire. It has a great dining experience and it's open for, well, the usual sort of weddings and business receptions. Has something really interesting at the front of the hotel. Let's just go and have a look. Yes, it's a wonderful pond which fronts the hotel itself. So that's the road that goes through Corse Lawn Common on the right there. Got some wonderful colourful tulips out here today underneath that willow tree. One of the curious things about Corse Lawn, this part of Corse, is the address, because the post town for the village is Gloucester. So the actual address is Corse Lawn, Gloucester, Worcestershire. Are there any other places in England with such a strange setup for a postal address? It's not often you see a croquet lawn at a hotel. Probably a little bit too damp a game of croquet here at the moment, but that's certainly the setup you have here at Corse Lawn. So how did Corse Lawn, or more specifically what was Corse Forest, come about? Well, it's linked to the king, King Edward I. We're going back to 1290-ish, and it was around his daughter, Joan Dacres. Joan Dacres in 1290 married one Gilbert de Clare, And on that marriage, the King, Edward, bequeathed this area, Malvern Chase, just over there, hunting ground for the King and all of his noblemen, and this, Corse Forest, which later became known as Corse Lawn. At some point, the spelling of Corse, C-O-R-S, changed to C-O-R-S-E. He added onto it. As I say, it was a forest, but the land was cleared in the 1700s. Now, it looked like it started to be known as Corse Lawn back around 1490s, when the glades appeared and the woodlands started being cleared. Around 1770s though, it was a complete lawn, a common area, because all of the trees entirely had been cleared. It was that point that the local parishioners started to use the common land around here for their own grazing. And that was backed up by an Act of Parliament in 1779. Unfortunately, because the ground is rather wet and boggy, as I can testify to in pieces to camera on Corse Lawn here today, the sheep often suffered with foot rot, making it not entirely suitable for grazing. So you have been warned if you're grazing sheep on this land here, and there is lots of water lying on Corse Lawn here today. Now, just to give you some idea of the scale of how big this area is, part of Corse Lawn is about 3/4 of a mile north to where I started filming, but you've still got this large common here which extends right on just a few miles south to the town of Upton-on-Severn, which of course we've covered previously on the channel on one of my 7 Ways series. What I'm going to do now though is head south down toward the heart of Corse village itself, which is also close to another village in Staunton. So we'll be heading into Gloucestershire at that point. Well, I've come now around to Corse Church and Corse Court, which is probably well over 2 miles from where I started the video even, at Corse Lawn. I'll put a map up so you can see the relative positions of everything. But we're going to have a look over here. While I'm here, I'm going to tell you about the Chartist movement and Corse Village. So what was the Chartist movement? Well, in the 1830s in the United Kingdom, there was lots and lots of poverty. And the Chartist movement was the first socialist movement, political movement, to support the working class. They're in dire poverty in those days. And it was down to one man after the movement started in the 1830s that took things further. He was an Irishman called Fergus O'Connor. Actually, he was an aristocrat. He wasn't a working class. He also set up the Northern Star newspaper as well. And they had 6 main aims, the Chartist movement. One of those was to stop the requirement to own land to become a member of Parliament. In order of doing that, it meant that a lot of poorer people could not become members of Parliament, and therefore there was not representation of that sector, the working class sector, in Parliament itself. So that was one of their key aims. The other one was to have secret ballots, and also to ensure that the working class people over, I think it was 21, were entitled to vote freely and without pressure from their landlords. So it was a really important movement, but it wasn't entirely successful. What's all this got to do with the village of Corse? Well, rather a lot. Now, the National Land Company was set up by Fergus O'Connor in order to purchase plots of land to build homes for the working class so they could support themselves in the countryside. And that is exactly what happened here. Around about 1845, several plots of land were purchased around the Sniggs End area, the southern part of Corse parish, if you like. Incidentally, the strange thing about this village is it doesn't have a specific centre. There's no kind of village green, if you like, which we're familiar with other villages that we cover here on West Country Wanderings. This church is some way out of the village centre. In fact, the church at Staunton is much closer to the main settlement of Corse, and this church is further away. Anyway, the land was purchased at Sniggs End, as I say, on the A4, what is now the A47, the Gloucester Road, and you can see lots of buildings there will have a unique style to them. They were built from 1946 onwards. And if you have a look at some of those buildings, which in effect look like small bungalows, they have an identifying feature, and that identifying feature is a keystone. It looks like a large slot for a large key, which is placed above the door, main entrance to this. And I think that was some kind of symbol of the Chartist movement. Now, unfortunately, the settlement here at Snig's End in Corse wasn't a great success. One of the reasons for that is that the people that were brought in to live in the properties in this village weren't rural people. They'd actually come from the inner cities to escape from the smoke and all of the really difficult nature of living in urban life in those days. But because of that, they'd come to a place which was completely unfamiliar. They didn't know how to farm, they didn't know anything about animal husbandry, and therefore it was very difficult for them to support themselves and the village community. Now, because it wasn't financially a success, neither the unit here at Snig's End in Corse nor the Chartist movement as a whole, although it did have repercussions later on politically, the whole thing kind of folded, and the land and the properties here were sold off piecemeal later on towards the middle of the 19th century. It was a very inspired idea to do it with really worthwhile objectives, but sadly it was ultimately a failure because of that lack of knowledge and the lack of teaching methods to enable the people from urban areas to thrive on the land in rural ones such as these here in Gloucestershire. Now, next to the church here at Corse is Corse Court, which also has its own interesting history. It was built through the Throckmorton family, the family of which we have come across previously on West Country Wanderings when I went around the estate in Warwickshire at Cufton Court, and they had associations with Guy Fawkes. In fact, they harboured his team for security in the basement of Cufton Court there in Warwickshire, just to the north of the town of Ulster. Later on, this court here at Corse was lived in by another famous person from Gloucestershire, and that was a gentleman called Jemmy Wood, who was a banker, a very wealthy banker from Gloucester. It was, or in legend has it, that Jemmy Wood is what Charles Dickens based the character Scrooge on in the novel A Christmas Carol. I don't know if this is absolutely 100% true, but there is some evidence to support it. So with the beautiful Corse Court behind me here on West Country Wanderings, that's it today from this most interesting of villages that straddles two counties in Gloucestershire and Worcestershire. Hope you found it interesting. I certainly did. I've been driving through this place for a number of years, going past it on the 417, and I thought it looks an interesting place. When I delved deeper, it proved definitely to be the case. All the best for now. Hope to see you on the channel again very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.